The desert doesn't echo screams, not the way you'd expect. The man staggered barefoot across the motel parking lot, blood trailing in desperate little puddles behind him like dots on a map leading back to hell. Behind him, the neon sign buzzed violently. Motel 999, vacancy. "Don't look back," he whispered. "Don't look back." He looked back, and the man in the suit was standing at the edge of the flickering pool, head tilted at an unnatural angle, arms at his sides like broken coat hangers, just watching. Always watching. "Please," the man gasped. He tried to scream for help, but his voice cracked into nothing. Dust filled his lungs. The highway was just ahead, past the sand-blasted sign riddled with bullet holes. But the sound came again. Footsteps. Not running, walking, slow, confident, hunting. The man tripped, landed hard, tried to crawl when he heard it. His own voice behind him. "Where do you think you're going?" He turned and saw himself, perfectly mirrored, the same torn jeans, the same face, same panic in the eyes, only the doppelganger's eyes burned red. The suit slid itself over his other body like a second skin, and then the head spun completely around. Snap. The road stretched like a scar across the desert, a cracked and sun-baked vein no one used unless they had to. Their Chevy Suburban growled under the weight of 620-somethings and a lifetime of inside jokes, snack wrappers, and cassettes warbling their favorite 90s mixtapes. Laughter spilled through rolled-down windows as miles peeled away behind them like the skin of something dead. They were 26, untethered, and high on nostalgia. This trip was the kind they'd talked about since high school. Their last big hurrah before life carved them into separate corners of the world. Dylan drove. He always did. Marla rode shotgun, chain-smoking menthols out the cracked window. The others, Jess, Theo, Ryan, and Cassie, were sprawled across the back seats like warm laundry, sharing licorice ropes and arguing about which horror movie had the best kill. That's when Theo said it. "You guys ever hear of Motel 999? No one answered. The air inside the Suburban thickened like something had shifted. "It's a place in the desert," Theo continued, his tone suddenly too serious. "Real rundown. Locals don't go near it. They say if you spend a night there, you don't come back." Ryan snorted. "So it's like Bloody Mary, but with bad cable TV and bedbugs?" "No, it's real," Theo said. "It's this urban legend from the 60s. A guy in a suit used to run it. Super clean-cut businessman. But one day he just snapped, checked himself into room 9, burned the whole damn place down with guests still inside. No one found bodies, only their luggage." They all stared at him. Marla clicked off her lighter. "They say he made a deal with something," Theo added. "Sold his soul. Now he haunts the motel. Wears a suit. He can morph into people you know. Red eyes. Hunts for fun. But it's not just about killing. He likes to play first." "Yeah, okay," Cassie said quietly. "And I'm Elvis." But the mood shifted. Even the music felt thinner, static bit at the edges of the cassette. They didn't talk much after that, and no one noticed the faded wooden sign they passed, barely visible behind a curtain of sand. Motel 999, next exit. Vacancy always. The sky bled orange as the Suburban rolled into the ghost shell town. Nothing moved but sand and wind. Power lines swayed like nooses. Buildings sagged inward like they'd forgotten how to stand. It was Cassie who first noticed it, how wrong the silence felt. It didn't just surround them, it pressed in. Heavy like the air itself, didn't want them there. They passed a shuttered diner with boarded windows. A car with 4 flat tires sat sun-bleached on the curb. Through the broken window of a barber shop, a cracked mirror reflected nothing. "Maybe we should keep driving," Jess muttered. But then they saw it. Off a side road, down a path barely paved anymore. There it was. Motel 999. The sign buzzed weakly, flickering between life and death. Vacancy. Of course. The motel was one long single-story building shaped like a crooked horseshoe, curling around a cracked green pool. The stucco peeled, curtains hung limp and stained. The air smelled like rust and scorched hair. They got out. No birds, no insects. Even their shoes felt too loud against the pavement. The lobby was empty, just a small bell on the counter, dusty and untouched. Then, ding. The bell rang. No one had touched it. A single key rested beside the register. Brass, tarnished. Room 9. The 6 of them stared at it, silent. "Let's just check it out," Theo said, grinning too wide. For the story. No one argued. Outside, the desert wind began to howl. The key clicked into the lock like it had been waiting. The room was stale and yellowed, curtains drawn tight. One light flickered in the corner above a floral bedspread that smelled faintly of mildew and regret. No Bible, no TV remote, no phone. Cassie reached for the mirror above the dresser. Her hand paused halfway. Her reflection didn't match her movement. She yanked her hand back. No one noticed. Dylan tried the TV. It sputtered static, then something else, a flicker, a frame, a man in a suit standing in a hallway, perfectly still, staring straight at the camera, then more static. "Probably old security feed," Ryan said, trying to sound bored, but his voice cracked at the end. Marla lit another cigarette. The smoke curled in the air unnaturally, straight up, no drift. Outside, the pool lights buzzed to life. Green water churned as if something had moved beneath it. Theo stared at the bathroom door. It was slightly ajar. "Did anyone go in there?" he asked. No one had. Inside, the faucet was dripping, but the handles were bone dry. No water line connected. A soft whisper crawled through the vent. "Someone in the room." They all froze. Ryan laughed. It was hollow. "Okay, this is messed up. Let's go get a beer." But no one moved. In the hallway outside, a shadow passed, just for a second. It looked like Dylan, but Dylan was still in the room. The motel breathed behind her like something asleep. Jess stepped out of room 9, letting the door close with a soft click. She didn't tell anyone. She just needed air. Something about the room felt occupied, like it resented their presence. The desert was ink black and vast. Even the moon looked afraid to rise. Jess walked barefoot across the cracked concrete path, passing dead potted plants and rusted lawn furniture that faced nothing. Ahead, the pool pulsed faint green, a single buzzing overhead light casting ghostly ripples. A moth struck the bulb and sizzled. She flinched. The pool was a rectangle of still, thick water. No movement, no breeze. The smell hit her before she reached the edge. Chlorine mixed with copper, like rusted coins and old blood. She glanced around. The others were still inside. Good. Something about this place made her skin crawl, but she didn't want to say it out loud. They'd mock her, or worse, agree with her. She crouched, dipped her fingers into the water. It was warm, too warm, like it had never cooled since the 1960s. She sat on the edge, let her legs dangle. A cigarette glowed faintly in her hand, ash breaking off in chunks. Then, a whisper. It was low, muted, like someone speaking through glass underwater. "You're not alone." Jess froze. The water didn't ripple. The air didn't stir. She stood, heart hammering. That's when she saw it. A figure stood across the pool, half in shadow, silhouetted, watching. It looked like Theo. Same frame, same casual slouch, jeans, hoodie, even had his hands in his pockets like always. But no, Theo didn't have a hoodie. He was inside watching reruns on mute with Ryan. "Theo?" Jess called, her voice breaking. The figure didn't move. Then its head twitched, a sharp jolt like a glitch in a VHS tape. Jess took a step back. The cigarette dropped from her fingers. The head twitched again, then rotated slowly, impossibly, all the way around. The spine didn't turn. The face did. Bones crackled like branches. Two glowing, bottomless red eyes blinked open, and it smiled. Jess screamed. The suit man took a single step forward, and the pool responded. The water quivered, darkened, as if something massive had just stirred underneath. Jess turned and bolted. She slipped, fell to her knees, then scrambled back up, legs burning, blood trickling from the scrape on her shin. She didn't look back. Couldn't. Inside, the motel lights flickered wildly behind the curtains of room 9. As she reached the door, she grabbed the handle, only to see her reflection in the room window. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, right over her shoulder, stood herself, smiling, red-eyed. She screamed again and slammed the door behind her. When the group finally gathered in the lobby, still shaken from the pool incident, the front desk bell rang again. Ding. She appeared from the back room, a woman, tall, thin, dressed in a faded tan blouse with a gold name tag that said Mavis. Her hair was styled too neatly, like it hadn't moved since 1960. Her eyes never blinked. "You're our newest guests," she said slowly. "How lovely. Been waiting for you." Marla leaned toward the others and whispered, "Did she just say waiting?" Theo laughed uncomfortably. "Creepy much?" Mavis smiled without showing teeth. "Everything you need is already in your room," she said. "It always has been." Before anyone could respond, she turned and disappeared into the back again. Cassie stared after her. Did anyone else notice she didn't leave any footprints on the carpet? They all turned to look. Nothing, not a single mark. Jess was pale when she re-entered room 9, sweating, shaking, her pupils wide. The scrape on her knee had smeared blood down her shin like ink. They were all there, Cassie sitting cross-legged on the bed, Dylan pacing, Marla smoking on the windowsill, Ryan and Theo half asleep on the carpet. There's someone out there," Jess whispered. "Who?" Dylan asked, stepping closer. It looked like Theo, but it wasn't him. Everyone glanced at Theo. I've been right here," he said. But Cassie's voice cut in sharply. "Jess, are you sure?" Jess nodded, but the damage had already started. Something had shifted between them, just slightly, barely noticeable. Later that night, Theo went to the vending machine. The hallway was cold and longer than before, like it stretched into another dimension. The soda machine hummed loudly, too loud. On the way back, he passed room 11. The door was open a crack. He paused. A figure stood inside, back to him. "Dylan?" Theo called. No response. The figure slowly turned. It was Dylan. But not. Something about the eyes, too shiny, too round, too wrong. "Hey man," Theo stepped forward. The not Dylan smiled, then snapped its fingers and disappeared. The room was empty. Back in room 9, they began fighting. Jess accused Theo of sneaking out. Theo accused Jess of overreacting. Cassie said she saw Dylan by the vending machine earlier, but he swore he never left. Ryan said nothing. He just stared at the wall, blinking too slowly. Marla finally snapped. "We're being messed with," she cried. "This place, that woman, the pool, the mirrors, everything. We need to leave now." But when they opened the front door, the hallway was different, longer, darker, no exit sign in sight. And at the end of the corridor, a man in a suit barely visible, watching. There was something wrong with the mirrors. Marla was the first to notice it. She stood brushing her teeth in the bathroom of room 9, and her reflection didn't blink when she did, didn't move when she stepped back. She froze, foam in her mouth. The mirror Marla grinned at her. She slammed the door and refused to go near the bathroom again. They tried to leave again the next morning. They packed the car in silence, all 6 of them moving as if underwater. But when Dylan started the engine, nothing happened. No click, no churn, no sound, just silence. Jess looked up and whispered, "That's not our car." Everyone froze. She was right. Same model, same make, but the stickers were gone. The scratch on the passenger door, gone. The back seat was spotless. "How?" Theo trailed off. Then Ryan opened the trunk. It was full of old suitcases, clothes that didn't belong to them, and one single men's business shoe, worn, black, soaked in something dark. Back inside the lobby, Mavis was waiting. "Back so soon?" she asked, her voice too smooth as velvet. Cassie stepped forward. "There's something wrong with our car." Mavis didn't blink. You must have been mistaken. Happens all the time out here. Sometimes things change." She placed 6 new keys on the counter. Room 9 had been replaced by rooms 10 through 15. "We've upgraded your stay," she said, "for comfort." "We didn't ask for that," Marla snapped. "Didn't you?" They separated, each one drawn to a different room, unwilling, uncertain, but unable to resist. Dylan heard someone whisper his name inside room 13 and stepped in. The door closed softly behind him. Marla sat on her bed in room 10 and heard scratching behind the wall, soft, insistent. A voice mimicked her childhood nickname, her father's voice, long dead. Ryan stared into the room's mirror until something blinked behind his eyes. Cassie refused to sleep, but when she opened her eyes, she was standing outside, alone. Theo watched TV static for hours until the screen spoke to him in his own voice. And Jess stood in room 15, heart racing, staring at the bed. There was a body under the blanket, breathing, slow, rhythmic. She crept closer, pulled the covers back. It was her. Eyes wide open, unblinking, smiling, wide. Red eyes. Meanwhile, down in the lobby, Mavis stared at the empty hallway monitor and smiled. "Only 3 left," she whispered to no one. Then her reflection in the dark glass winked. Cassie woke up standing in the middle of the parking lot, barefoot. The sky above her was the color of metal. She didn't remember falling asleep. The motel looked different. The neon sign no longer blinked. It pulsed like a dying heart. The gravel beneath her feet crunched too loudly. The air smelled like burnt plastic and copper. A low hum vibrated beneath everything, like the world itself was under pressure. She turned to run, but the rooms were no longer in a row. Now they formed a circle, each one connected by a hallway that shouldn't exist, a maze, a trap. And in the center of it, near the flickering pool, stood the suit man, still watching. Meanwhile, Ryan hadn't spoken in hours. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his hands. He could feel them changing, stretching, sharpening, becoming wrong. Something had whispered to him last night through the vent. A riddle, a game. Guess who's next, or lose your face. He didn't answer. Now, when he looked in the mirror, the reflection lagged, a beat too slow. And sometimes it smiled when he didn't. In room 13, Dylan had found something beneath the bed. A video camera still running. He pressed play. It showed footage of all 6 of them checking in, Mavis handing them the keys, the group laughing, then later footage. Them, asleep, tossing, restless, one by one, their bedroom doors opening by themselves. A figure in a suit, face obscured, standing at each of their beds, leaning down, whispering. Then, Dylan dropped the camera. From behind the curtain, he heard someone breathing. He turned slowly. Nothing there. But his shadow stayed behind a second longer when he moved and smiled. Elsewhere, Marla ran. The motel was endless now. Looping hallways, doors that led to the same room, same blood smear, same buzzing light. She passed a window and saw herself, but her reflection was outside the window, running the opposite direction. She screamed, "Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!" Footsteps behind her, heavy, deliberate, clacking dress shoes. She turned a corner and slammed right into Cassie. Both girls screamed, clutching each other. "It's real," Cassie whispered. "He's here. He's hunting." "He's not hunting," Marla breathed. "He's playing." Jess locked herself in the bathroom. The lights buzzed. The walls warped slightly when she looked at them too long. There were 3 reflections of her in the mirror now. Only one blinked. The one on the left tilted its head, curious. The one on the right leaned forward and whispered, "You're almost out of time." Then, a hand reached up from the sink drain. Human fingers, business suit cuff, grasping, crawling upward. Jess screamed and smashed the mirror with the lamp. Glass exploded everywhere. The reflections just kept smiling through the broken shards. And then, Theo was gone. Just gone. One moment, watching TV. Next moment, his bed empty, blanket still warm. They searched for him, split up again. Bad idea. Cassie found his shoe in the freezer of the ice machine, blood frozen inside it. Ryan found his hoodie outside, folded neatly on a chair by the pool. Dylan heard his voice calling from inside the walls, but no one found Theo. Later that night, in the main hallway, the flickering ceiling lights began to dim, one by one, until only one stayed lit. Beneath it stood a man in a black business suit, red eyes, a human face stretched too tightly over something not quite human. He raised his hand and waved. They all saw him from different angles, from different rooms at the same time. Then they heard it. A new voice, a woman's voice, sickly sweet, from the front desk speaker. "My shift begins now." Mavis's voice now came through every speaker, soft, crooning, rotting sweet. "We like to keep our guests comfortable." Cassie and Marla burst into the lobby, faces pale, hearts hammering. The front desk was empty. The bell on the counter rang by itself. Ding, ding, ding. Then the lights flickered, and Mavis stepped out from the shadows. But it wasn't her anymore. Her eyes glowed like coals buried in ash. Her mouth stretched too wide. Her dress was clean, but dripping with something invisible. The name tag read, "Suit Manager." "Check-in is eternal," she said. "Checkout is earned." The floor behind her peeled open like a rotten fruit, black, endless, writhing. Meanwhile, Jess was locked in a room with someone who looked like Cassie, but it wasn't her. The Cassie thing cried like her, talked like her, pleaded to be let out. But when Jess asked about their childhood trip to Summer Ridge, the fake Cassie blinked and said, "There is no Summer Ridge." Jess ran, and behind her, the imposter smiled and peeled off her face, revealing a blank, smooth surface underneath. Dylan wandered through a corridor that kept shrinking. The doors were mirrors now, each one showing one of his friends dead in a different way, burned, drowned, torn. At the final door, he saw himself, bloodied and smiling. Behind him, the suit man and the suit woman, one standing on each shoulder, whispering in his ears. He opened the door and stepped through. Ryan begins to whisper to himself, writing symbols on the motel walls in ash and spit. He may not be Ryan anymore, or maybe he never was. Marla vanishes in the middle of a hallway sprint, caught between lights, swallowed by a blinking shadow, and Theo's laughter is heard from the ice machine. Only two remain, Jess, Cassie. They find each other in the lobby, bloodied, shaking, barefoot. Behind them, the neon sign buzzes into life again. It doesn't say Motel 999 anymore. It just says, "Welcome back." Ending 1. The desert swallowed Jess and Cassie whole. They walked for what felt like hours, barefoot, sunburned, delirious. Their clothes were torn, their eyes bloodshot, their sanity fraying at the seams. No signs, no cars, no other living things, only sand, bones of twisted cacti, and the sound of their own breaths. Cassie sobbed once and collapsed. Jess knelt beside her, brushing dust from her forehead. "We made it," Jess whispered, voice cracking. But something in her voice didn't believe it. Eventually, as the sun bled orange over the mountains, a semi-truck appeared on the cracked highway. Jess stood in the middle of the road and waved it down like her life depended on it. It stopped. A tall, kind-eyed trucker stepped out, his flannel shirt sweat-stained and dusty. He looked real, safe. "Jesus," he muttered. "You girls all right?" "Please," Cassie croaked. We just need to go anywhere. We came from..." She paused. Jess looked at her. Cassie frowned, confused. "We came from... Where did we come from?" Jess's stomach dropped. The word motel wouldn't leave her throat. Her tongue felt heavy. Something wouldn't let her speak it. "Motel 999, Jess finally whispered. The trucker froze, his face drained of color. Then, slowly, he stepped back toward his truck. His hand reached into the glove compartment. "Did you say Motel 999? Jess nodded, chest tight, her vision blurred. The trucker's hand returned holding something shiny. A motel keycard, the exact same kind they were given, room 6. He smiled. The smile split too far. His eyes began to glow red. I haven't checked in yet. Behind Jess, the desert was gone. Behind them, the motel, neon glowing, doors wide open. Room 6 was waiting. Cassie began to scream. The trucker's face warped. As he lunged toward them, the sand beneath their feet turned to carpet. The sky above flickered, and from the pool far in the distance, music began to play. Checking in, checking out, where nobody leaves and nobody shouts. The sound of the front desk bell rings once, then again, and again. Ending 2. Jess wakes to a faint hum, soft music, the smell of coffee, and flowers? She opens her eyes slowly. Sunlight pours in through blinds. The desk in front of her is clean, polished. A little vase of daisies rests beside a computer monitor, flickering softly. The front desk, she's behind the front desk, neatly dressed, gray uniform, buttoned up to the throat. A small silver name tag glints under the warm light. Mavis. Jess freezes. She stands slowly, heart racing, trying to scream, but nothing comes out. Her hands move automatically. She straightens the brochures, replaces a pen. She smiles at nothing. Across the lobby, Cassie appears. She's smiling warmly, pushing a housekeeping cart. Morning, Mavis, she chirps. Jess opens her mouth to speak, but she only says, Morning, Cassie. The words spill out in a voice that isn't hers. Cassie disappears into the hallway. Jess tries to leave the counter, but her legs won't move. There are no exits, only corridors that loop, only rooms that reset. She's locked in a routine she can't control. Then, the front door opens. A loud ding rings out. 6 teenagers walk in, laughing, lively, free, just like they once were. They approach the counter. One of them, curious-eyed and bright, leans in and says, We heard this place was haunted. Got room for 6? Jess wants to scream, wants to beg them to run. Instead, she hands them the key. Welcome to Motel 999. Your room is ready. They turn and head to the hallway. As they vanish into the motel's belly, the neon sign flickers outside. Now it reads, Now hiring. Jess's eyes fill with tears. Behind her, a whisper. Your shift begins now. She turns. The suit man stands behind her, straightening his tie. The suit woman leans on the counter, eyes gleaming, grinning like a shark. Aren't you happy to be part of the family? Music plays softly from the intercom. Checking in, checking out, but never leaving. The bell rings again. New guests. The cycle begins. Ending 3. The motel burned behind them. At least, it looked like it burned. The orange flames rose unnaturally slow, like syrup in reverse, and the smoke slithered up into a starless sky. There was no heat, no noise, only the image of destruction. Jess and Dylan didn't run. They crawled, their bodies broken, their clothes shredded, their friends gone. The only thing keeping them moving was the dull memory of what came before the trip, of sunrises, coffee, laughter in a driveway, a road trip playlist that never played long enough. They made it to the desert highway. No lights, no signs, no sound but their own breath. Until headlights. A dusty patrol car crept up the road. A sheriff stepped out, old, wrinkled, harmless looking. "You kids okay?" Jess and Dylan collapsed into him, crying, shaking, trying to form words. The sheriff sat them in the back of the car, offered them a warm blanket, and poured something hot into cups. "There now," he said softly. "Motel 999, was it?" Jess froze. Dylan stared. The sheriff's voice darkened slightly, almost like another voice spoke through him. "Ain't been open in years." Jess blinked, looked behind her. There was nothing but empty desert. No fire, no smoke, no neon, only sand dunes. The sheriff drove them to the nearest town, Gravestone Ridge, population 207. There were police reports, medics, questions, but the local authorities never found any trace of Motel 999. No property records, no wreckage, no surveillance, no bodies. The story made the news for a week. 2 traumatized survivors, 4 missing friends, an urban legend reborn. 6 months later, Jess worked at a coffee shop. She never turned her back to the windows, never closed the shop alone. She kept a hammer under the counter, just in case. Dylan moved back in with his parents. He didn't talk much, didn't leave the house after dark. Sometimes they called each other. One sentence, no context. "Do you hear it?" The bell rang again last night. "Don't dream." One night, Jess got a postcard in the mail. No return address. The front showed a highway, sun-bleached and cracked. On the back, in neat black ink, "Room 6 is still available." She burned it. But at 3:33 a.m. that night, her phone rang. Unknown number. One message. "Check-in is forever." Jess and Dylan sit in a small diner on the edge of nowhere, both quiet, both haunted. The waitress smiles at them kindly. "You kids from out of town?" Jess nods. The waitress pours coffee. Her hand lingers a second too long. She taps her nails on the table twice. Jess glances down. The waitress's name tag reads M. Gray. The smile, the too sweet voice. Jess's blood runs cold. Dylan looks out the window. A man in a suit stands across the road, half shadowed by a broken billboard. His eyes glint red. He tips his hat. The legend never checks out.